we could do that. So I'm going to talk to you about the 6 and the pros and cons of those. So the first option you've got is what I call being a corporate slave. This is working your way up the ladder. This is what I thought would work for me. So I started out as an engineer and became a manager and became operations manager and general manager. And so I've been in charge of hundreds of people. And I thought that was probably a good career plan. That's what we're sort of told is the answer, isn't it? Oh, be a manager. But management didn't really make me happy. I'd be interested to know with the viewers whether you, I don't know whether you want to put a message up about, are you a manager and has it made you happy? Just put yes and no, or just no, or yes and yes. If you are a manager and it has made you happy, put yes and yes. If you're a manager and it hasn't, put yes and no. And if you're not a manager, just put no. It'd be interesting to see what we've got.
I was a manager.
Somebody's put yes and yes. Excellent. No to corporate, yes and no. What I found when I was a manager was that I had to gradually sell my soul to the devil. I had to do things I didn't really agree with. I had to do nasty things to people. And it became political. In order to get my part of the company to be successful, I had to play political games with other parts of the company, and it just became anyway, it wasn't the answer for me. Now, I'm not knocking it, because for some people it clearly is the answer. It's definitely an option, but don't assume it's the only answer. It depends. There's some good comments coming up there. So that's the first option you've got, going up the corporate ladder. We'll come to the pros and cons in a minute. Now, the next option you've got is to find some sort of vocation. Find a job you love. It may not be brilliantly paid, but that's okay because you love it. So this could be being a teacher or a nurse, doctors, that's quite well paid and vocational. It could be engineers. I think engineers are vocational. They do it because they love it. And they don't want to go into management, because if you're an engineer or a doctor and you go into management, then all of your skills that you've built up are then wasted. You're starting a whole new career that may well not be suitable for you. So why not carry on doing that? Now, it won't be as well paid, but it might be more satisfying in the end. So a lot of my engineer friends are still working as engineers now, and they love it. So that could be a vocation type job. And obviously vocational jobs could be third sector charity type things, which are often not well paid, but you're making a difference to the world. So there's all kinds of vocational jobs. That's your second option. Now, of course, the question with vocational jobs is, what is your vocation? And does everyone perhaps have a vocation if they could find it? And I've moved from being an engineer into teaching now, and I much prefer teaching. Teaching is my vocation, I now know, but it's taken me years to find it. And it goes back to the ikigai, to find something that you like doing, that you're good at, that you can get paid for. So vocation is the second option. It'd be interesting if people listening have found their vocation. You could just put in the text, put what your vocation is. If you have got a vocation, bung it in the text there. If you are a teacher or an engineer or a nurse or a charity worker, and your vocation might be art. You might be a poet or something like that. Hard to earn a living, but that would be a very enjoyable way to earn your life if that's what floats your boat. Data analysis could be your vocation. Exactly. Therapeutic horsemanship. That's a fantastic one coming up there. Anyway, so I definitely think coaching and mentoring and teaching is really enjoyable if you can find something you know enough about that you can teach other people. Anyway, that's the second of my 6 ways to earn a living. Another option, I'm just going to call it easy life. So what you could do, you could find the easiest job that you can. Just, I don't know, I'm not saying all jobs at the council are like this, but you might be able to work for the council in some little dusty corner and do almost nothing, just 9 to 5, no stress, just so that you can maximize the time that you spend outside of work. Doing the things you love doing, riding your horse or driving your speedboat or drawing or writing poetry, and also spending time with your family, of course. Nearly forgot them. So maximize your time and energy outside work. That is a life strategy that you could go for. And in some ways, I don't think that's bad, because there's a lot of great stuff outside of work, and your family is the most important thing. But on the other hand, you've got to spend 5 days a week at work. So you are kind of wasting 5 days out of 7. And that worries me slightly with that strategy. But it certainly is a strategy that some people are following. By the way, at the council, there are vocational jobs, and there's also the corporate ladder. So, there's all sorts of options in any organization. And you might be able to have an easy life doing any job. Something like, say, working as an estate agent, let's say. You can really go for it and be the best estate agent in the world, or you could just go for an easy life and bobble along and just under the radar, just hoping you don't get fired. And, that's an option. In any company, there are people who are doing that. I don't really approve of that, because I think if you've decided to take a job, you should put the maximum effort in and do it as well as you can for your own self-respect, apart from your duty to the company who are paying you. But that is an option in most locations, the easy life option. The fourth of my 6 options is to retire early. So you could work like crazy in the city or doing some sort of real high stress, massive job so that you can then get out early, retire at 40, 45, 50, something like that. And you could do that. And you could do a job that you enjoy and find quite satisfying. And then enter phase 2 of your life when you retire and do a load of other stuff. And you might retire early with hardly any money. Just retire as early as you can, but have to live quite an economical retirement. Your other option is to work really hard and retire early with decent money, if you could do it. And that would be an option. I've known a few people who've retired early, and quite often they get bored and then they start another job. So, there is a question mark about whether you can actually successfully retire early. But you could certainly enter phase 2. Somebody's put buy a vineyard on there. So you could work like crazy in the city, retire at 45, buy a vineyard perhaps in France or Italy or somewhere, and live there for the second half. And that could be a plan that you have. Of course, you have to pay a price, because to save up enough money to retire early means you're probably going to have to work pretty hard doing something pretty stressful, or you've got to be really, really clever, because you could work in the city if you're clever enough, make a whole load of money. So those are the 4 employed options. There are 2 self-employed options. So the first one is to build up and sell a company. Just going to check this fits on, build and sell. So some of my friends have set up their own businesses, and 1 or 2 of them have sold them off for millions. One of them sold his company off for millions, and he's now just dossing around in Cornwall. Hi, John, if you're watching this. I bet you're not. He'll be out on his boat. And well done him for doing that. A very clever guy. He did it. Because to build up a company is difficult. You have to have a lot of skills. You've got to be good at management, strategy, marketing, finance. You've got to, it's not easy. Another one of my friends, hi David, he set a company up, sold it, and then immediately got bored, and he's now set up another one. So he's just going around doing that. But he loves doing that, and he's making money. There are several other people I know who are doing this, who are hoping to sell their company off at some point, but they can never quite get there. So just when it's nearly big enough to sell, something happens in the market and it plummets back down again, and then they have to work on it again. And so at the moment, they're still trapped in this high pressure, trying to get it big enough to sell it off game. I personally find that a very scary option. I don't think I'm clever enough to do that option, but it's certainly an option that some people take, and it is a way to possibly make millions. And then my final option, which is the second of the self-employed ones, is what I'm going to call a lifestyle business. This is what I do now. So these are self-employed people who don't employ anyone else. They just do something in exchange for money. So I travel around the country doing training courses in exchange for being paid. So I haven't really got a care in the world. I just turn up, do my thing, and leave again. I'm not employing anybody. There's no risk. There's no hassle. I've got lots of customers, so if I upset a customer or a customer went bust or something like that, it wouldn't really matter. I've got plenty of customers. So lifestyle businesses could be anything. It could be a jobbing builder or a plumber or someone like that who just travels around and does their building or their plumbing. Or it could be any kind of training, coaching, life coach, anything like that. Physical coach could be. So it's anybody who has some sort of skill that they sell. Now, one of the snags with this is you have to be able to do and sell. So often there are people who can do something, but they can't sell it. So you might be, for example, real software expert, but you might hate selling. And then that's going to be a problem for a lifestyle business. You probably need to be employed by somebody else. But if you can find something that you can do and you can sell it, then you could go for the lifestyle business. You have to also balance your time between the two, because if you do a lot of doing and no selling, then suddenly you run out of work, and then you have to do a load of selling, but you've got no money coming in while you're doing that. So there are some issues with balancing the doing and the selling, and there's obviously self-discipline required as well if you've got a lifestyle business, because you could just do kind of very little, and then you'd be almost going back to the easy life option, and that is an option. So those are the two self-employed ones. Some people think that these are more risky and there's less security, but remember that if you're building a company, the worst you've got to do is get rid of some people again, perhaps if times get hard, but you'll still be okay. And if you've got a lifestyle business, it's actually more secure than you think, because usually it's spread across lots of customers. So if you lose a few customers, not the end of the world. And your costs are quite low if you've got a lifestyle business, because it's only you. Quite often you're operating out of your own office at home. So, at least you don't have lots of people you've got to be paying every week. So those are the 6 options. I don't think there is a 7th one. I think these are the only options. So then the question is, which one is best for you? And I've got 2 answers for that. Firstly, I've made an online questionnaire that's free that you can go to. We'll put a link after this podcast that you can go to. But if you're in a real hurry and you want to do it right now, just go to chriscroft.com and you'll be able to find it. It's my most recent blog post. So chriscroft.com. You can go there. There's all sorts of other crazy stuff in my blog, all sorts of interesting things. The happiness lemon, the lifestyle animals. That's a couple of other questionnaires you can do to find out which animal you are. But there's one on what's the best type of career. But I want to discuss these options a little bit now. So let's look at some of the reasons why you might choose or not choose some of these. And the first one is money. And I've divided money into the money that you get during, and then the money that you get when you retire. So if you look at these, I think the corporate slave option, the money during corporate slave is going to be pretty good. I mean, obviously you're going to be, put a ring around that one. You're going to be well paid if you're a manager. And that's the main reason why we got that ladder. And in fact, why would somebody offer you loads of money to do a job? And the answer is because the job must be a bit shit. And if they offer you a free car as well, you've really got to be suspicious. Why would they do that? It must be a really unpleasant job. So, because if they could get you to be a manager for less money, they would, but they have to offer that much money to get you to do it. So anyway, so the money's going to be good during. When you retire, I don't know, some people, if you can get a final salary scheme, if those exist anymore, then that's going to be great, but you can't really guarantee that anymore. So I would say that's a pretty good option financially. The vocation, the money's okay during and it's okay when you retire. It depends what it is. Something like teaching, I'd say, is not particularly well paid during, but I think they get a pretty good pension. So anyway, there's that. The easy life option, I think there's a big snag. It's not going to be well paid. If you go for the minimum work, so you could put all your energy into your time outside work, it's not going to be well paid. But, that's okay. And then when you retire, you'll have some sort of half decent pension, I suppose. Now, what about the working like crazy and retiring early option? Well, I think that varies a lot. I think if you work in the city, it could be really well paid. But you might do a less well-paid job. And then similarly, when you retire, you might manage to retire with loads of money, but you might end up retiring with not a lot of money, but at least you managed to get out. So I'm just going to put question mark for those. I'm giving it green. I think possibly okay, but we don't know. Depends. Now, building and selling your company is not as well paid as you think while you're doing it. I'm going to put a question mark for that. Some of the people I know who run their own companies take minimal payout. In fact, often they don't pay themselves at all. And some of them have remortgaged their houses just to keep their companies going. But of course, their big dream is it's going to be fantastic when they retire. When they do manage to sell the company off, that's when they're going to be rich. But, is it ever going to happen? But that's the reason why they're doing that. And then we've got the lifestyle business. Now, the pay during, I'm actually going to give it a tick, but I'm not going to put a ring around it, because I think most lifestyle businesses are actually quite well paid. We know that plumbers, for example, do pretty well. And most self-employed people do pretty well. I know Alex is there listening with the sound down. I think he probably does pretty well with his lifestyle business. And to give you a quick window into mine, last year I did about 120 days of training, and I averaged about £1,300 a day. So if you multiply that up, I don't know what that comes to, but not bad. I've worked pretty hard to do those 120 days. There's a lot of driving around the country and things, and I've worked in the evenings a certain amount. And I'm going to come to time in a minute. But financially, lifestyle businesses are pretty good. When you retire, though, what on earth happens? How can I ever retire from my endless hamster wheel of training? Because if you sell your own time for money, then you can never stop. And that is a big problem that needs to be thought about if you're going to have a lifestyle business. I'm just going to tilt this slightly so that the sunlight, there we are, it's made it a bit better, hasn't it? So already we've got quite a few pros and cons. Now, I mentioned time just now. Let's just have a look at that next, time. And again, I'm going to put during and retired. So going up the corporate ladder, I would say is not good for time during. Everyone I know who's a senior manager works pretty long hours, and you have to travel for the company. You'll be away. Once the lockdown ends, we'll all be back on our aeroplanes going off to do deals in America and stuff. It's not going to be good for time. And how long is your retirement? Well, I mean, I don't know. I don't think you're going to be able to retire early doing that one. Vacation, I think it's just average time on both. Don't think there's anything significant there. Easy life, the reason we go for the easy life option is maximum time, isn't it? The whole point about that is we do 9 to 5 or whatever, and we get plenty of time in evenings and at weekends. So that's the reason we do it. I think retirement's just going to be the same as everybody else. Now, the retire early option, the reason we do that is we give up all of our time while we're working, but it's fantastic when we get to retire. And that's the reason why they're doing that option. Get that extra time retire. Although, as I mentioned, quite often people who retire early then start a second job, so they never actually get that time. So I think you've got to be careful about the retirement early plan. Building your company and selling it, well, you're not going to get any time during. It's going to be all consuming to build up your own. If you've got employees, you can say goodbye to your life. Retirement could be good when you finally do sell it, but as I mentioned earlier, quite often people start a new one as soon as they sell their previous one because they get bored. So if time is what you want, I don't think that's going to work. I think you're trading time for money. And then the lifestyle option, not brilliant when you're doing it. I think Alex works pretty long hours. I work pretty hard. I don't mind because I love it, but I do work long hours. The only thing I would add, I'm just going to put flexibility on there, because if I've gone below my thing, I'll put it above. Because if I do want to take time off, I can. If I want to go to Australia for 6 months, I can do it. I haven't got a boss. But there is, generally, I tend not to. I do tend to work. I did actually go on holiday 6 times last year. So you can do it. But if I'm on holiday, I'm not being paid. So, there's always that trade-off to think about. So I have got flexibility, but I do work pretty hard. And then retirement, there's a big problem, because how can you ever retire? And I think, I may well work till I die, but I kind of don't mind that because I love the work. But I'm working on a few plans. I've got some online training, which brings in money. So I could retire and live off earnings from online training and books and things like that, perhaps. So you can see the time options. Easy life gives you time right now, and retire early gives you time later. Self-employed, you're going to probably work hard, but it'll be okay because you'll enjoy it. Now I want to add just 2 more columns, and then we've almost finished this session. The first one is risk. because some of these options are more risky than others. So if you look at going up the corporate ladder, I think it's quite high risk. The average life in the job of a chief exec is 2 years. So every 2 years they get fired on average. You don't often get chief execs who stick around longer than 5, and often they only last 6 months. So it's high risk doing that. That's another reason why they pay you well. So it's risky. Now, vocation, I would say, is low risk. You know, if you're a doctor or a teacher or something like that, you've got a skill that's always going to be in demand. If you're good at it, you will be fine. So I would say that's a low risk option. The easy life, that's a low risk option, clearly, as long as you go along under the radar and don't get caught, don't get fired, but you know, you'll be all right. Retiring early, I think that's quite high risk, because I know various people who plan to retire early and then they never did. So retiring early is a difficult one to do, but possibly. Then we've got building your business and selling it. Now that is really high risk. You know, will you ever manage to sell it? Will the business reach a size where, imagine if you worked like crazy for your whole life and then your business never got to a point where you could sell it, never got to a point where it didn't need you anymore. And I think on a rough survey of my friends who are doing it, it's about 50-50 probability about whether you can sell your business off. So that's a hell of a risky route to go down, I think, but you know, potential to make millions. And then finally, we've got the lifestyle, which I would say is low risk, because if you've got something you can do, and if you do it reasonably well, make that slightly higher up so that you can see it there. It's not risky. You can just keep doing it. So I'm really good at running project management courses, and I just turn up and I talk about project management. The doing of it's not risky because I know about project management. The selling of it's not risky because I get repeat work and I've got lots of customers, so it doesn't feel like a risky option. Not like building up your own business. That's why I've resisted doing that. Now, my final column is happiness. Just to return to the theme that I started with, really. Which of these is going to optimize your happiness? By the way, you could have 3 more columns. I'm just going to mention those 3. You could have how sociable are you? Because the lifestyle business is kind of a bit of a lonely life. You're on your own. I don't mind it. I quite like it. But, you know, if you like to work in a group of people, you may not like that one. There's power. If you like power, then you probably want to build up your business or go up the corporate ladder. I'm personally not interested in power at all. I just think it's ridiculous. But there are people who like, you know, the thrill of being able to really make big things happen and stuff. And then there's also freedom. Freedom is a big thing to me. I hate being told what to do. And clearly, being self-employed gives you a lot of freedom. The lifestyle business, you know, I can tell a customer to F off if I want. I have occasionally. So I've got total freedom, and I really like that. I can decide how I want to do it. This talk, I can decide how I want to do this talk. It's up to me if I even do this talk. So freedom. Now, my little questionnaire that I've made at chriscroft.com, it looks at all these things, including social and power and freedom, and you put in how important they all are to you, and then it says, oh, well, in that case, this is the one you want to choose. So that's kind of how my questionnaire works. So that could be a bit of fun. You could do that after this. I hope you don't all do it at the same time. My website will probably crash, but, you know, bear with it if it's a bit slow. But what about happiness? Which of these will make you happier? And I personally found that being a corporate slave didn't make me happy. I found that I was selling my soul to the devil. I also found that I want to make a difference. And I mentioned that earlier. And I felt that I expected going up the corporate ladder to enable me to make more of a difference. I thought, if I'm in charge of hundreds of people, I can sort this company out at last. If I can just be one more level up, I can sort out all these things that need sorting out. But what I found was that I had less effect on more people. So as I went up the tree, the number of people I could affect increased, but they were further away from me, and I had less and less effect. And I actually think if I'm doing something myself, like I'm doing this talk right now, then I can have the maximum effect because I can do it the way I want to do it. So I found I got further and further away from the coalface and had less and less control over how I actually did things. And I found that I didn't find it satisfying in the end. If you want to make a difference, I didn't feel that I could. And I did quite a few different management jobs and lots of different companies with different cultures. And every time I found that the more senior I got, the less feeling I had that I really made a difference. Because you've always got a boss. However high you are, there's always a boss. And there's always rules and other departments and restrictions. Whereas at least if you're just, say a bricklayer, you're doing it. You made that building. So I didn't find that corporate life made me happy. Now, if it makes you happy, that's brilliant. But don't assume that going up the ladder is going to make you happy. Now, vocation, I think, is brilliant for happiness. And this is the first time the vocation has had a good score, but it's a really important one. Because doing a job you love for 5 days a week for your whole life is huge. So that is the advantage of the vocation. And the vocation doesn't really have any disadvantages. It's not risky. It's not brilliantly paid, but the money's going to be okay. The time's okay. If you can find your vocation, if you can find that thing that you enjoy doing and you're good at and you get paid for and make a difference, then that's fantastic. And your vocation can either be self-employed lifestyle, or it could be working for somebody else. But if you work for somebody else, they're always going to keep more of the money. But then you don't have to do the selling. So the big question is, can you do and sell, or can you only do? So I think vocation is really great for happiness. The easy life, I think, is pretty good for happiness. I'm not going to put a ring around it. But easy life is good because you get lots of happiness outside of your work. Now, obviously, you're doing a job that doesn't really excite you. So 5 days a week are wasted. So that's the snag. But you get plenty of time outside work and there's no stress. So I think, that's not bad for happiness. Retire early. I'm going to put a question mark for that. I don't know what effect on your happiness retiring early is going to give, because it depends how you do it. It's possible that you'd absolutely work yourself almost into the grave in the city. And when you're completely burnt out and not happy, you might retire and slump and be bored. And you just lost both. But on the other hand, you could work smart, get out early, get your vineyard in France and be happy in France as well. So I think there are ways to do it, but I think there's an element of risk. Not sure about that one. Building up a company and sell it, I don't think is the route to happiness. The people I know who've done that have not really enjoyed the process. It's been quite stressful. They've had ups and downs. And then when they've retired, they have either missed the power that they used to have, or they've started to feel they don't have much purpose, and and that's why some of them have started doing it again. So I think retiring and selling might not be great for your happiness. And finally, lifestyle, I actually think is brilliant for happiness. I love it. I love doing something that I know how to do. I love traveling around, doing something, being paid for it, helping people and being paid for it. How good is that? If you can make a difference and be paid for it and have freedom, it's fantastic. So I would urge you to think about lifestyle if you can find something that fits this, and if you can sell. If you can't sell, then vocation. So I think those are the 6 corporate options. Nobody will tell you about those, of course, apart from me. Because the HR department are never going to say, why don't you go self-employed? And the career teacher at school knows nothing. So, where can you get this information anywhere else? And I've just been thinking about this for 40 years. I could say I've made this up, but I'd like to say I've developed it over 40 years because these are just my thoughts. Now, if I've missed one, then that's, let me know. I'd love it if you could email me after this. Just go to my website. And if there's a 7th one, I think there are combinations of these. And I think certainly retiring early might divide into retiring with very little money or working really hard and retiring with quite a lot of money. And I think those are probably 2 subsections of that one. But anyway, I hope that helps you think about your career, and I hope it helps you get it right from the start, because you don't want to wait till you're ancient like me and suddenly realize you took the wrong one. I'm happy because I found lifestyle, but I tried vocation as an engineer. I wasn't a very good engineer. Went corporate, didn't really like that. Had an easy life as a lecturer, but didn't really find I was making enough difference. I did actually toy with building up my own training business for a little while as well, before finally deciding that it's best just to be me. So that's what I'm doing. So so there we are. That is my 6 career options, the 4 areas.